Patrick's Day.
88.7 Adelaide's Coast FM. Cheryl Lee here. Welcome to your Monday Latte, and a big thank you to Paul in for Lynette tonight for the right mix. So this month is St. Patrick's Day. In fact, 2 weeks today, to be sure.
Yes.
We've been having guest presenters each month this year. You may remember John Bywaters from the Twilights joining us in January and Vince Contorino from the Zep Boys last month. Well, what better time to welcome into the studio as co-presenter tonight, Adelaide's own favourite Irishman, Damien Kelly. Thank you so much, Damien. I know how busy you are this time of year.
It is busy.
Yeah.
But it's always, March is always a busy time for us, like there's always a few festivals on, but the penultimate day is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Penultimate.
And you've got a lot of family. You're one of 10, and you've got a whole heap of family joining you this St. Patrick's.
Correct. Yeah, it's Irish Catholics, My father's, father was, his name was Paddy Kelly, and he just taught us all those old Irish songs when we were kids, and that's how it all came.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit later about why we've opened with Jimmy Barnes's Rocking Pneumonia and the Boogie Woogie Flu. But up next, we've got a couple of your favourite songs that mean quite a lot to you. We've got one from Nick Cave and one from Cotter Ward. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they mean?
Well, Nick Cave was the first artist I ever saw live in a venue. I was 15. He was on it was a band called the Boys Next Door from Melbourne. And I remember just standing there and he was just going off in front of us, and I was just going, what the hell's going on here? With my sister and her friends who are all super cool, you see.
Yeah.
And so he came off for his break and I remember going up to him going, he was sitting there having a beer, my sister and that, they don't talk to him at all. But I just went up to him, I said, I love your music. And he just looked at me and he said, I hate it. And I thought, that's Nick Cave.
That is.
And so from that point on, he sort of really inspired me to, especially the theatrics of performing. And so I sort of, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times. He's a lovely bloke. And Coulter Wall, he's more recent. I'm a country music fan from way back, and Johnny Cash is one of my favourite artists. But Coulter Wall, someone played him to me one night, and I thought, wow, this guy's got a great voice. Yeah. And I expected to see this guy who's got smokes 20 packs of cigarettes a day, and he's like 70 years old. He's like 23, and he's just got this amazing voice. And writes beautiful songs, really, the lyrics are wonderful lyrics and stuff, yeah, so.
Well, awesome. We are with Damien Kelly from Almost Human first and now Kelly's Wake as well. Let's hear those two favourite songs of yours and then we'll be back. And if you didn't know, be warned, we're going to be a little bit Irish tonight for our first hour with our guest Damien Kelly. There we go.
Hey, that's all right.
You're with Cheryl Lee. You're on Monday Latte. You're on Coast FM. I should say you're with Cheryl Lee and Damien Kelly.
Yes, I'm here too.
So we just heard two of Damien's favourite songs. Before we talk about two other special songs of yours and play them, you guys, we said March is a very busy time for you, being St. Pat's month and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys have got a performing with a few.
Yeah, we're just going to do... maybe play a few songs at the Gov, on St. Paddy's Day. Yeah. A few pints of porter. And
a few.
And get people singing along. It's always lovely to have people sing old songs. And it's funny because people seem to sort of know the words, or at least they know they can sort of hum along and stuff like that. But it's funny, I think it's innate in everybody when they hear something in their childhood or early on. They'll always carry that or have it in them somewhere, that melody.
Yes.
And you find a lot of people, they just start singing a melody out of nowhere, anyway.
And, that's why nostalgia is a very powerful thing, and that's why we can remember every single word from every single song in the 80s, but we don't know why we walked into the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we've got a couple more of your favourite songs to play. You can tell us a little bit about The Progues, A Pair of Brown Eyes.
The Pogues, Shane MacGowan, of course. He's a wonderful lyricist, a great songsmith, a wordsmith. and wrote some wonderful songs with the Pogues. I mean, they're sort of an institution in Irish music. Everybody loves the Pogues. They're comparable to the Dubliners, Christian Moore, Van der Man, Bobby Geldof, all those guys. The Pogues, they created something quite unique out of Irish music, and a bit of punk as well. And with his wonderful lyrics on top, just made it just perfect. I got to see them actually once at Blues Fest, which was really cool.
Amazing. Oh, and what a place to see them at Blues Fest as well.
Yeah.
And then we've got Luke Kelly's song, the Night Visiting song.
Yeah, Night Visiting song. He was originally the one of the lead singers for the Dubliners, played the banjo and stuff, and beautiful classic Irish voice with those beautiful old songs, the old traditional songs. And this is he passed away in '84 from brain cancer, which is a tragedy, but his legacy lives on. And most Irishmen, if you ask them who their favourite singer is, most of them will go Luke Kelly. And so I aspire to be a quarter, an eighth, a tenth of what a great singer and songwriter he was.
Yeah. The Irish music, it's just always so, even sometimes when the lyrics may be a little bit dark, the tune and the fiddle and everything, it's still pretty uplifting.
Brings a lot of joy. Brings a lot of joy to a lot of people. And it's funny because it's sort of initially, when I started playing in the Irish stuff, because I did it because Mum and Dad had taught us all those songs when we were kids. So for me it's sort of second nature. We used to all dance around, play musical chairs, and Dad used to play, the Irish washerwoman and all the reels on the piano, and we'd all be running around the chairs and doing stuff like that. So for us it was just like part of growing up.
Well, I've had the pleasure of being to quite a few Kelly's Way gigs, including a couple of times when you and your band have kindly donated your time and talent to entertain us at our Support Act fundraisers. Thank you very much, by the way. And I just cannot get over how happy everybody seems to be all the time. Let's listen to these two, A Pair of Brown Eyes by the Pogues, and then the Night Visiting song, Luke Kelly.
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool.
You're with Cheryl Lee, you're on Monday Latte, you're on Coast FM. We have a co-presenter in the studio today, Damien Kelly from Almost Human and Kelly's Wake. And we're going to play an Akadaka song next because I know you did some driving, didn't you? And they were one of your first driving gigs, apart from, opening for them for Blow Up Your Video.
Yeah. So I was in Almost Human at the time. We're trying to get the AC/DC support. And I was working for a company called Starstruck, which was owned by Gary Van Egmond. He was promoting them. And so I gave them all our stuff, and they said, look, no, they gave it to the Party Boys instead. Anyway, he said, but I'll give you a gig on the, on the show. I said, oh, okay. They said, you'll be driving stuff. I said, oh, okay. So I rang up the tour manager, and he said, okay. I pulled up in this 12-seater bus, and there was two limos there for the band, and then there was me in this 12-seater bus, and the tour manager said to me, he said, right, we're going to chuck all the bags in once the band leaves in the limos, he said, we'll chuck all the bags in and you just follow us to the hotel. I thought, yeah, no worries, I'm in. Well, I was excited anyway, it's AC/DC. Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and there's all this commotion and people and cameras and stuff going on, and then the door slides open and Angus got in. And he said, cool, he said a driver with long hair. I thought, oh, okay. And then the whole band got in. I thought, okay. And then the tour manager he said, go, just slammed the door. I said, okay. And I just drove off with the whole band in there. It was really good, but, it was very exciting. But the funny thing was, I was put up with the lights, you're looking at cars around, you go, look who's in the back, look who's in the back. And because it's just a 12-seater bus, so no one's even paying attention, not even paying attention to what's going on. But, so that was pretty exciting. And then that was out at Globe Derby Park. Right. So that was when they had the riots and pushed over the fence and everything. That was pretty full on. And then Yeah, and then I ended up a few years later, Trevor Hunt, who was the local rep for Van Egmonds, and he rang me up and said, "Do you guys want to open for AC/DC
There you go.
at the entertainment centre?" And we did 2 nights with them. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, step up
Oh man, it was
from driving to opening act.
Yeah, so because you're a musician, firstly, and to driving them's great, but to actually play and open for a band and at that stage they were probably the biggest band in the world. Yeah. So for us it was or for me anyway, it was great.
Well done. Well, let's have some Akadaka now, shall we?
Let's do it.
I think you chose Touch Too Much.
Cool. Great song.
Okay. Good job.
Cool.
You're with Cheryl Lee and Damien Kelly. You're on Monday Latte. You're on Coast FM. That was Almost Humans, Full of Flight. Now, from Almost Human, Damien, to Kelly's Wake, that must have been a bit of a journey. Tell us about that.
Oh, okay. Well, Almost Human was we were all friends from a very early age, about 17, 18. And that was sort of like the new wave of British heavy metal coming through, like your Judas Priests and the Iron Maidens and stuff like that. And we were sort of, we liked AC/DC and Status Quo, but with all this new British heavy metal, that sort of influenced the band, and it sort of thrust us into. We sort of became the pioneers of heavy metal in Adelaide at that time, and then we started to get people coming from interstate to see the band. From Melbourne and Sydney and stuff, and then we started touring Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, and then of course we went to New Zealand and stuff. And the band had a top 40 hit back in '87. I think it was in the charts for about 10 weeks, something like that.
Amazing,
yeah,
well done.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. And then since then, and then we've opened for bands like Cheap Trick a couple of times. We opened for Whitesnake, opened for Judas Priest.
Oh, wow.
I'm just trying to think other ones.
Mick Fleetwood?
That was another band that I was in. Yeah, we opened for Billy Thorpe and Mick Fleetwood.
Oh, yeah, that was with Big Secret.
A band called Big Secret, who also had a top 40 hit. Yeah.
So some great successes.
Yeah, so it has. I've enjoyed some success in that regard, yeah. And then, of course, Almost Humans sort of like every now and again, because it was such a big band back in the early 80s and stuff, every now and again we sort of get asked to do these shows, to play again, and I love doing it because we were all original band, so we wrote all the songs and and it's about all our experiences when we were growing up as kids, and a lot of rebellious stuff in there, of course, because we were sort of 18 and 19 at the time.
Oh, that's your job.
Yeah, well, it was pretty much our job, and so that was pretty cool. And then I've just sort of been involved in music. I was driving bands around for 30 years, like you said before, like Akadaka, but, everybody from, I don't know, Whitney Houston to Elton John to Metallica to everybody, the list could go on. I think about 600 or 700 passes,
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so.
What an amazing collection.
Yeah. But I always look at them as waiting around. Each pass represents waiting around for an artist to go, I want to go do this, like do something with Aussie, They want to go look at the second-hand store down the road, okay, and you got to go scope it all for him before he goes in and all this sort of stuff.
Security?
Yeah, well, not security so much, but just sort of, feel it out, make sure it's all cool and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's been that was an interesting part of my life. And then, of course, the Irish thing, we were just having a wake for a friend, Mick Murphy, after he passed away. Murphy's, Kelly's, always been good friends, always sang the songs together, those songs, like I said, that our parents taught us. And then we were just playing in this front bar, this little room next to a front bar. And we'd been there for a while drinking and playing stuff.
No.
Yeah. And then the publican came in. We thought he was going to kick us out. And we said, look, sorry. And he goes, no. He said, we turned off the jukebox hours ago. We've been listening to you guys all night and thought, okay. So then I rang Paddy and Brian and that the next day. I said, why don't we put a band together around these old songs, And that's what we did. And it's just sort of gone from strength to strength, really.
Absolutely. The rest is history. Let's have one more Almost Human song. How about Freedom Highway?
Yep.
And then we'll have a couple of your current band, Kelly's Wake, after that.
Sounds great.
Far out. Time's flown, hasn't it?
It does.
I remember Mark, when we interviewed Kelly's Wake. They were my very, very first interview on telly ever. We did it in your
And the rehearsal room.
room. And afterwards, when you just kept singing and and then you think it ended and it started again and then started again.
And that's what happens
That
though.
was so much fun.
It's so insane.
A little clip in your driveway.
Yeah.
After the interview.
Yeah. But that's the funny thing about Irish stuff, Like when you start singing it, you sort of start singing it and then you do a verse and a chorus and a verse and a chorus, a verse and chorus, and then we expect it to finish. And then there's another verse and another chorus. And there's 20 verses and 20 choruses, you just go, and we go, yeah.
Yeah. That was such a laugh. That was great because even though there was a lot of you, you're also such good guys that have made my very first job very easy.
Oh, good.
Because you're
Good.
easy to talk to. 40 seconds, we're just going to put your mic on and you'll just say that.
Okay. Sorry?
Yeah.
This is the song you got.
Yeah.
Actually, we only just learned it too. Serious, that was the first time we'd ever played it.
No.
Kidding.
Yeah, no, serious.
Great little clip.
Yeah, I know.
We just got in their driveway for a photo session. They had a cabaret and they broke into song. Of course, Airtown Breeds lady up and they would. It's a pretty good little clip. Late on
Especially at the end, totally unscripted. I went off like that, and then one of you went off like that, and then the girls went off like that, and everyone just disappeared off in a different direction. I thought, you can't write that stuff.
Oh, there goes Barry. I'm sure it's not Barry.
It wasn't Barry though.
No,
Because Barry was we had to go away, and so we had Jamie, a guy called Jamie in there.
But we called him Barry.
We called him Barry though. We called him Barry anyway. Yeah. Oh wow.
You're with Cheryl Lear on Monday Latte. You're on Coast FM. Oh, our hour has gone so quick, Damien, and we've got so much more to talk about. We were just reminiscing during the song. Full disclosure, Kelly's Wake were actually my very, very first TV interview for Channel 44, and they were so much fun. And they played that song over and over and over and over again. But not only do they sing the beautiful old Irish songs, but also they've got a lot of original work as well, including Walk the Mile, which you wrote, Damien.
Correct, yes.
Yep. Now, we opened the show today with a Jimmy Barnes song because you were actually the assistant tour manager for him for a little while.
For Jim.
You've been everybody.
Yeah, well, I was Jim's tour manager for the Works Live tour,
Yep.
which was about 89, I reckon, 88, 89. Yeah, it was great. It was really good fun and, just played all over the country and, hung out with wonderful people, in the band. And, he had Tony Brock playing drums, Peter Cackell on the keyboard. But Tony Brock's just about come back. He's the drummer with the Babies.
Right.
Yeah, Charlie Sexton was in the band, and I saw him. A few years later. He came back here with Bob Dylan's band. So all these people who were in Barnsley's band at that time, all just great musicians and from all over the place, of course.
A little bit ancestral, really, isn't it?
Well,
Everyone's in someone's band, then someone else's band, and back to that band.
yeah. Well, Bruce Howard, God bless his, God rest his soul. He was in Barnsley's band for a few years, with Rob Riley, and so he's had some wonderful players along the way with him,
He has, and it does create a great Australian musical family, I think. Yeah, everybody's sort of connected to everybody like a real family.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And and when you do see people, it's great because you can sort of reminisce and talk shop, and because everybody sort of knows someone in the business, so you're always sort of, there's always something in common.
Yeah.
Common thread. And I like that about the business, it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I think I heard a rumour that you've got a little bit of a scoop for me about some rumour of a new album, possibly later in the year.
There is a new album.
Yeah.
Later in the year. We're just going through the last bits of recording now. We've done the bulk of it, along with a bucket load of booze. And and then so we've just got to do the mix down and the artwork and everything like that. But yeah, at this stage, it looks like it's going to be called Stranger Than Folk, and which will be the title track, of course, which is an original song. And we'll just see how it goes. It'll be our third album, so I'm looking forward to getting it out there again and seeing how it goes.
Awesome. Well, all the best with the album release. I can't believe that our hour is already up. Thank you so much for coming in and being my co-host today, Damien.
No worries. I'll do it again.
All right. We'll do it next St. Pat's month.
Hey, there you go. Next March.
All right, it's a date.
Yeah. Or sometimes they have like 6 months to St. Patrick's Day, that sort of stuff.
Right.
But you'll be in America, so don't worry about it.
Now, we're going to go out with your hour with my first boyfriend and one of your great influences, Elvis Presley. And why do you love this song, Burning Love?
Oh, I just love Elvis's voice, I've loved it forever. And I had the opportunity to work for his band when they came out and did the Elvis, had the big screen with Elvis on it. And then they had the smaller screen with Ronnie Tutton in 1979 and Ronnie Tutton in 1999 or where it was. 1969, there's the Aloha tours. And it was the same band, the Imperials, the Sweet Inspirations. They had Glennie D on keyboards, they had James Burton on guitar. And so I got to hang out with all those guys and told me stories about Elvis as well, which was really cool. Yeah. And so and then I got to go to Gracelands a few years ago as well, and into Sun Studios, and they let you hold the microphone that Elvis sang with, and it's quite a remarkable thing to do that. Like such an iconic part of music history, And I think Elvis is wonderful. He's up there with the Beatles.
Oh, absolutely. And that is on my bucket list after Route 66.
Do it. I'd strongly recommend it.
I'll follow your footsteps. I'll follow your recommendation.
Yes.
Here we go. Here he is, my boyfriend Elvis, Burning Love. There we go.
Awesome.
Yep, I'll play the Judas Priest and Iron Maiden songs in the next hour.
No worries.
I'm
going to go home to sleep.
Yeah, you can. Thank you. Your work here is done.
Mrs. Murphy sat in the corner, pouring out her grief. Kelly and his gang all came tearing down the street. They went into an empty room, a bottle of whiskey stole. Put that bottle with the corpse, keep that whiskey cold. That's how we show our respect for Patty Murphy. That's how we show our honor and our pride. They said it was a sin and shame, and winked at one another. Every drink in the place was full the night Pat Murphy died. 2 o'clock in the morning, after emptying the jug, Joe pulled back the icebox sleeve to see poor Betty's mug. They changed the clock so Mrs. Murphy couldn't tell the time. At 2:15, we argued it was 9. Pulled the house on George Street, outside Jan Gan's saloon. We all went in at 8:30, staggered out at noon. We went up to the graveyard, so holy and sublime. Only when we got there, we left the corpse behind. That's how we show our respect for Patty Murphy. That's how we show our honor and our pride. They said it was a sin and shame, winked at one another. Every drink in the place was full the night Pat Murphy died. Woo! Yeah! Let's go! Yeah!